All right, let's talk about thread. Hi everyone, I'm Angelina and this is Blueprint DIY, where we remake our clothes to be just as unique as us. So yes, this isn't a typical sewing channel, but this is an upcycling channel and I do a ton of sewing for this channel. And you guys have been asking me for some basic skills that you'll need as a beginner sewist. So today we're talking all about thread. So when you go to the store, whether you go to Walmart, whether you go to the fabric store or Michael's, or if you're out of the US, if you go to the store, you're going to see a bunch of different types of thread, and you might get a little bit intimidated by this, just like when we were talking about the needles. But first and foremost, I am going to share with you, if you just started sewing, please do not get discouraged by all of the different choices. Right here you can see the all-purpose thread. The all-purpose thread is a polyester thread, and I'll tell you the difference between polyester, cotton, and the different materials and the different compositions of the thread. But right now we're just going to talk about what thread do you need if you are just getting into sewing. Go and get the all-purpose thread. The all-purpose thread is going to, just like it insinuates, it's going to work for all purposes. Not necessarily, but definitely most purposes. So no matter whether you're sewing garments, really no matter what you're sewing, most people just get the all-purpose thread. The all-purpose thread comes in more colors than any other thread, and also more sizes of the different types of thread. Right here you can see that Colton Clark is what Walmart sells. I'll also see Colton Clark in my local Joann Fabrics. They also have Gutermann. I know a lot of people in the UK get that brand as well. So over time, you'll develop what is your favorite brand, but as far as all-purpose threads, that is definitely across the board what you'll need the most. All right, so let's talk about some of these other threads, like button and craft thread. And just like the name says, it's for buttons and crafts. You'll notice if you go to any of your blazers in your wardrobe and you look at the buttons, behind those buttons is going to be a rather thick thread, and this is the material that is used. Now, if you go to any of your blouses or dress shirts, typically they will not have this thread. It'll be an all-purpose thread depending on the fabric that it was created with. But this thread is specifically for your blazers or your items where the buttons need to be a little bit set away from the garment in order to work properly. Okay, so that's not necessarily for every button, but it is for like stronger buttons, as well as some type of craft projects where you may need a little bit of a thicker thread. They do come in smaller spools, not as many colors, but that's what it's for. All right, so next up, let's talk about this embroidery thread. Embroidery thread is typically a little bit thinner as well as shiny, and the reason that is this particular thread is for machine embroidery, not the needlepoint or different things like that, embroidering by hand. This is for when you have an embroidery machine. So as a beginner, you probably won't have to get any of this, but if you do decide to get an embroidery machine, this is the thread you'll get. Now, if you go online, you'll be able to find a ton, like many more colors. I have a whole set that I'll link in the description box below, a whole set of embroidery thread, because I recently bought an embroidery machine and I wanted to test it out. But these are a little bit shiny because they're intended to make graphics on your garments, and you want those to pop out. Other thread, you just want it to be kind of seamless with the garment. This thread was made to stand out, as well as all of embroidery is little stitches very close together, kind of like buttonholes. And so with those stitches being so close together, you want that thread to be slightly thinner so that it doesn't get clogged up in the embroidery machine and it can perform its duty without fail. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a thing. We are doing some amazing things here and I don't want you to miss it. All right, back to the video. All right, next up is one of my favorite threads, and it's jean thread. So this is going to be the thread that you will use on any type of denim project. It is, as you can see here, a little bit thicker than the other threads. Now, I will tell you so that you are not surprised, some of the sewing machines, especially the beginner ones, don't necessarily like to work with this thread. It doesn't flow through the machine, as easily. So if you have more of a heavy duty sewing machine, like the Brother Strong and Tough, the Singer Heavy Duty, then maybe that'll work better. Janome HD series, then these threads may work better. But if you have a basic sewing machine, I would try it. I'm not discouraging you from trying it, but don't be surprised. I don't want you to get it and be surprised and thinking that you're doing something wrong. You'll have to play around with the tension and everything like that in order to get this thick thread to go through, especially the bobbin thread. But you do have another alternative. You can see here that these threads do come in typical denim colors. So like on a light color denim or even on dark denim, a lot of time they will do the like mustard colored thread, and then they have the blue as well, a dark blue and a light blue. You can just get the all-purpose thread and use that when you are making your denim projects. Will it look like the denim was bought in the store? No. But will all-purpose threads sew your jeans? Yes. All right, so let's talk about metallic threads. Sometimes you may want to get a little, you know, razzle dazzle, zhuzh up your garments, so you may want some metallic thread. Now, I also have a warning about these as well. These do tend to break easier than regular thread, so you will have to be patient with them. So that means with these, typically they're only for top stitching and not for very thick layers. Okay, so like if you're doing like a thinner cotton or something like that, then these would be perfectly useful to you. Okay, so for decorative things, thinner fabrics, not necessarily delicate fabrics, but thinner fabrics, like, you know, a couple layers of cotton or something like that, then you could use these threads. All right, so next up is upholstery thread, and just like the name says, it is for upholstery. It's very similar to the jean thread, the denim thread. It's thicker in weight. It has more little pieces of fibers wrapped together that are going to hold your upholstery together. So if you are reupholstering a chair in your living room, then this is the fabric that you're going to use. Depending on the weight of your curtains, if you're doing a heavyweight curtain, then this would be the fabric that you would use. So I think of upholstery thread as almost like a heavy duty thread. All right, so let's talk about serger thread before we go any further. As you go along in your journey, you may decide that you want a serger, or you may just decide that you want more bang for your buck in your thread. Then this is serger thread. Serger thread is basically all-purpose thread on a comb. Okay, so when you are using a serger, you use a lot more thread, and so it makes no sense to buy the small spools of thread. And so they sell them in cones, as well as it makes it more functional for the serger for them to come off the top of the spool. However, if you see a color of thread and it's on a cone and you decide, hey, I'll get more bang for my buck buying the cone versus buying the small spool, there are contraptions that you can buy that allow you to use cone thread on your regular sewing machine. So that is a tip for you, so you won't be always running out of thread in your basic sewing machine. And with a serger thread, if you actually do have a serger, yes, these can get pricey because typically I buy them, or I try to buy them 4 at a time. There's a couple of places that I get my threads from. I will put links to all the places in the description box below. All right, so last up, let's talk about heavy duty threads. So many of you guys have asked me with my Sailrite Fabricator, what type of thread do I use? There is a range of heavy duty threads, and specifically for industrial sewing machines, you would use a cone thread, so either the serger thread or a heavy duty thread on a cone. However, you can use regular thread, but my specific that I like to buy is a polyester V92 thread. I'll put a link in the description box to where I've gotten all of the thread that I have for my Sailrite. As well, Sailrite does sell thread, so I'll put a link to that as well. But there's a range. You can get V62 all the way up to V92. They all have different numbers, but it's all about the strength and the thickness of the thread. So as you go higher, the thickness of the thread gets higher, you know. So yeah, and it's always we're talking about threads that will sew wind sails. So yeah, Sailrite, that company, a lot of people, they make boat, you know, wind sails, things for boats, the boat covers, the seat covers in the boats or in cars, and different things like that. So that's what we're talking about right now. We're talking about that thread that sews that. You can also easily, if you have a professional or industrial sewing machine, put the denim thread in that. And I also, you know, like to get that on a cone as well for my industrial sewing machine. So there's a range there, but you know, you can get all of these threads in polyester, in cotton, in nylon, or there's also silk thread. So you may be saying, well, what's the difference between those? Like I said, all-purpose thread is polyester, and the reason it is polyester is because polyester thread has a little bit of give to it, and so typically all of your garments, most of your garments, is going to want to have some thread that has a little bit of give, because we move around in our garments, and typically the standard is that you want your thread to be a little bit weaker than the garment itself. So the polyester thread allows your garments to move and stretch with you without ruining the fabric itself. Then for cotton, cotton is a little bit weaker because it has no stretch, which is why a lot of people use it for quilting. And it's specifically for, like, a lot of people, you know, really believe that when you are making 100% cotton garments, using cotton fabrics, you use cotton thread, and that your fabric should match your thread. Your fabric composition should match your thread composition. But in general, most people, when they're making garments, they use polyester. Most people, when they're making quilts, when they're making delicate things, then they'll use a cotton thread, because the polyester thread might be a little bit too strong for something that's delicate. Like I said, you want your thread to be just a tiny bit weaker than the actual fabric, so that if anything happens, you'll want the thread to break versus that thread cutting through your fabric. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you learned a ton. Definitely let me know what other type of basic skills you want to learn, and I can see if I can make that happen. Definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a thing. And check out our other basic sewing and upcycling skills tutorials right here, as well as some other amazing upcycle tutorials. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.